Hey everybody, this is TJR, and if you're new here, welcome to the channel. If not, welcome back. And this coming Saturday, April 22nd, is Record Store Day 2023. As always, I'm looking forward to going. I'm looking forward to getting up early Saturday morning, something I don't normally look forward to, and getting in line, hoping that I can get the items that I'm most excited about. Of course, going to Record Store Day is not a guarantee that you will get what you want. That's just part of the whole deal, and I just accept that. That's another topic, though. But first and foremost, Record Store Day this year has gotten me thinking about a question concerning the vinyl revival that I have been asking myself lately, and one that I think is only a matter of time before others on the internet start to ask about it also. So I thought I would address it now. And this question, quite simply, is if vinyl records sound so great, then why did so many of us, myself included, ditch them for CDs back in the 80s? Now, before I put myself on the witness stand for this one, I want to just remind you that if you like these videos, if you like the content I make here, please click like, hit subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon so you never, ever miss a video. Okay, now that we've paid the bills, back to the program. As a teenager, I grew up in the mid to late 70s. At that time, our options for listening to music as far as formats were concerned were vinyl records, cassette tapes, and 8-track tapes. All three of these formats had their various pros and cons. But I think it's safe to say that until the CD came along in the 80s, vinyl records were pretty much the dominant format. Now, when the CD finally did come along, the general reaction was, wow, they sound really clear. All of us, including myself, were for the most part really wowed by them. And most of us, including myself, began the process of switching our music collections to CDs as a result. Now, I know that not everyone ditched their records for CDs in the 80s, and that some fans did keep their LPs. I know that there were some audio enthusiasts who didn't like CDs. Some of them are famous right now on YouTube, and said that someday the LP would return. And as it turns out, they were right. But they weren't the majority. Now here we are in the 21st century, 2023, and some of us have sworn off CDs for vinyl. And some, like myself, do enjoy both. So in all fairness, I do have to put myself on the witness stand and cross-examine myself and ask, if vinyl records sound so good, then why did so many of us abandon the format for the compact discs? Now, I can't speak for everyone's experience, but I can speak for my experience and ask if any of you did the same or thought the same, and if your experience doesn't mirror mine. Now, when I was a kid, my parents got me a single speaker transistor radio cassette deck. I was a very young teen, and this was the device that I first began to listen to the radio with. This is the beginning of my discovery, my road to discovery of pop music or popular music, whatever you want to call it. Every day after school, I looked forward to coming home, and instead of watching cartoons like I used to do, I looked forward to going to my room, turning on my radio, and just seeing what new exciting discovery might come next. Everything was a discovery at this point. Everything was something new and fresh. And I would spend what little allowance money I had on cheap cassette tapes that I would use to record songs off the radio broadcast. I would sit there listening, and then when a new song was being announced, I'd hit record and play, and I'd record that song. I'm sure these cheap cassettes sounded like crap, but I didn't know any better. Also, I didn't have any records at that point in my life, but my older brother had a big record collection, and when he went away to college, he couldn't take his records with him. He had to leave them at the house, And he told me it was okay to play them just as long as I handled them properly. And he gave me a quick little lesson on how to handle records properly. I had no record player of my own, but we did have an actual stereo system in the living room where I grew up. And I was allowed to listen to all the records I wanted to in the living room, just so long as I plugged in a set of headphones and didn't disturb everyone else with it. And we had a set of headphones in the house. This was acceptable, but I really wanted my own stereo system in my own bedroom so that I could, just have that experience of being able to listen, in private. Even though I was, I guess, listening in private with headphones, I just had to sit in the living room and do it. And I just really wanted to have my own stereo. Well, as it turned out, I was very lucky that my father at the time worked for a company called Capart that manufactured cheap home stereos. So it was either for Christmas or my birthday. I'm not sure really which one anymore. My dad got me a Capart record player, 8-track player, stereo combo with pre-wired speakers. I'm sure this stereo system sounded like crap, but again, I was a kid. What did I know? And I have to stress that this is because pretty much everyone I knew within my peer groups, living the same middle-class existence as myself, was listening to music on pretty much the same kind of equipment. I wouldn't know anyone who was into high-end audio gear till my oldest sister got married. Her husband appreciated high-end audio, had really nice audio gear, took really good care of his records, and was also into reel-to-reel tapes too. But he was a complete anomaly to the rest of my experience. Cheap, mass-marketed stereo systems with automatic turntables and built-in 8-tracks or cassette decks were pretty much the norm for the majority of consumers, with high-end users being more in the minority. Now, it's true that my older brother did give me a leg up on how to handle records, but when it came to cleaning them, this is what I was actually told. You just let the needle run across the record, and then at the end, you blow off whatever dust it collects on the needle. And that was how I was told how you clean the records. Remember, there was no internet back then to just look up and research whatever topic you needed info on. So given the quality of record players and sound systems that most of us used back then, not to mention the varying degrees of care, or perhaps I should say lack of care, employed when using vinyl, it's no wonder that even with a cheap CD player, the quality was just better. The low maintenance factor of CDs was a big plus also. And don't forget that record labels, in their attempts to get us to rebuy our music collections on CD, were manufacturing newer records with lower and lower quality. Now, at first, CD players were out of the price range of most consumers. They were certainly out of my price range at first, but like anything else in time, the prices came down. My first CD player was a cheap combo stereo unit that I bought at a local electronics chain store. It had, of course, the CD player. It had a record player. I still had records at that point and needed something to play them on. But it was one of those cube stereo systems that was so big, whereas the records were this big. And so the records actually played over the actual record player, not unlike those cheap Crosley players. It had a dual cassette deck, so I could tape off the LP player, and also it allowed me to tape off the CD player, and I could tape cassette to cassette. And I would, of course, tape the CDs so that I could play those in the car, because a CD player in your car was still a luxury that I could not afford. And that was true for a lot of people. I can remember as I started rebuying my music collection on CD, when I first obtained a CD copy of Elton John's Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy, one of my favorite albums by him, I made a comparison between it and, of course, my scratchy record copy. And, of course, the CD was the clear winner. I should also add that as a musician, what money I had to spend on audio gear went to buying the best quality guitars and guitar amplifiers I could afford versus music playback gear. Audio gear for music playback was secondary to that. In fact, it was probably even a little further down the totem pole than secondary. Aside from that last part, of course, I think that my experience was similar to a lot of people my age and my income background. We were listening to records on such cheap gear that, yes, of course, a CD definitely sounded better. And I want to stress, I'm not one of those vinyl is good, CD is bad. I think both formats have their qualities that offer great listening experiences. Yes, vinyl is more high maintenance than CDs, and I've talked about this in previous videos, but vinyl does offer listening pleasures that I can't get with CDs, which is why I like both formats. And again, I've talked about this in previous videos, but I thought I should touch on it here for those of you who may not be familiar with my past videos. And also, as I've discussed in the past, it wasn't until the early 2000s that I began to find myself bored with current music releases that were coming out. And I started to become aware of the fact that part of the reason for this might be because of the loudness wars. It was this realization that led me down the path to rediscovering vinyl. And of course, I've covered this in other videos as well. I think it's also worth pointing out that high-end audio, just like high-end video, is so much more obtainable and affordable now than it was, say, maybe 40, 50 years ago. Even low to mid-priced soundbars offer sound quality on a budget that was simply unobtainable 40 to 50 years ago. So that was my experience, and I think that's why I ditched vinyl for CD, and I think it's the reason why a lot of other people did too. And again, I realize not everybody did that, and looking back, I think the few people I knew that didn't ditch their vinyl didn't do so because they had more high-end audio gear. And they decided, I still like the sound of vinyl. Or they said, I like the sound of both. And there were some people who never liked CDs. But those are my thoughts. That was my experience. Let me know if your experience was similar. Let me know your feelings one way or the other. I just want to now thank my Patreon supporters who are helping me make more videos. Patreon supporters do receive exclusive weekly videos not available here on this channel. If you'd like to be a Patreon supporter, go to patreon.com/TJR the original. If you can't be a Patreon supporter, that's okay, I understand. Just click like and share these videos with anyone you think might be interested. Looking forward to Record Store Day next weekend. I'm sure I'll make a video on what I get. And anyways, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. It means a lot that you come and spend time here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.